The morning my father told me I was too expensive to save, I was lying in a hospital bed at Denver General, room 314, 19 years old, hooked up to tubes, and terrified. He stood in the doorway with my mother behind him, wringing her hands, and spoke the words that would haunt me for years. Cancer treatment costs more than you're worth to this family, Colton. We're done here. I remember the moment exactly. 7:43 a.m. The untouched breakfast tray sat beside me, scrambled eggs turning cold. My brother Preston leaned against the window, scrolling his phone like it was just another meeting. My dad gripped a thick manila folder of medical bills, waving it like courtroom evidence. 300,000 minimum, he said flatly, as though quoting a repair estimate from his auto shop. And that's before complications. Before experimental treatments. If the first round fails, we lose the house, the business, everything Preston has worked for. Your mother's retirement. For what? A 60% chance you live? My mother, Judith, the same woman who once checked my fevers and made me soup, nodded quietly. She wouldn't even look at me. Mom, I croaked, throat raw from chemo. You set really leaving me here alone? She turned toward the wall. Your father Sip's right. We have to think about the family Sip's future. Preston finally glanced up from his phone. It's Sep's just math, Colt. 1 life versus 3. Sometimes you have to make hard choices. That morning, they walked out and never returned. They changed their numbers the same day, moved without telling me where, and even convinced Meredith, my girlfriend, that staying with me would ruin her life. In 3 hours, I lost not only my health, but every person I thought I could depend on. 5 years later, a man in an Armani suit knocked on my apartment door. Harrison Aldridge. He introduced himself, from a downtown law firm I could barely afford to walk past. He smiled, gentle but knowing, holding a leather briefcase worth more than my rent. Colton Ryder, he asked. I braced for news about unpaid medical debt. Instead, he spoke words that made my knees buckle. I sipped him hear about a $63 million inheritance left to you. I laughed, because what else do you do when life twists that cruelly? But Harrison didn't laugh. He laid out document after document, official seals and signatures I could hardly process. The donor, he said softly, asked that I deliver their final message to you personally. Samuel Havsham, the night janitor who cleaned your hospital room, never forgot the boy abandoned, but unwilling to give up. The boy everyone said was too expensive to save. Sam, the quiet old man who mopped my floors at midnight. The one who slipped me crackers when I couldn't afford dinner. Who sat with me during brutal chemo nights when I wished the pain would end. He was worth $63 million, and he left every cent to me. The same kid whose own father reduced my survival to a line on a calculator. But to understand why a hospital janitor left me millions, you need to know what happened in those 5 years between abandonment and inheritance. You need to know what it means to survive cancer alone at 19, to juggle 3 jobs while poisoning your body with treatment, to prove your life has value even when your own family says it doesn't. My name is Colton Ryder. I'm 24. 5 years ago, my family abandoned me in a hospital bed because cancer made me too costly. Last week, I became a multi-millionaire because a stranger saw my worth when my own blood couldn't. This is that story. At 19, life wasn't supposed to be complicated. I thought I had it mapped out. Weekdays, I worked as an apprentice carpenter at Brennan Construction, learning to frame houses and build custom cabinets. My hands were growing strong and calloused, badges of pride. My boss, Rick Brennan, said I had the skill to run my own crew by 25 if I kept at it. Weekends were for Meredith, my high school sweetheart. We'd drive up to the mountains in my beat-up Ford Ranger, hike hidden trails, and talk about our future. She studied nursing at community college, while I saved for trade school. The plan was simple. Marry at 23, buy a fixer-upper I'd renovate, start a family by 27. Every Friday night, I had dinner with my parents at the same Maple Street house I grew up in. Mom's pot roast with red potatoes fell apart on the fork. The smell mixed with pine sol and WD-40, traces of Dad's auto shop. "Colton's here," Mom would call, though everyone knew. Preston arrived 15 minutes late, like always, calculated to seem busy but not rude. Dressed in his sharp real estate suits, he bragged about his latest commissions. Little brother still playing with wood. He'd tease, ruffling my hair. I'd shoot back, "Somebody's got to build the houses you sell." Dad would laugh from his recliner, beer in hand. My father, Vernon Ryder, was a man of oil-stained fingers and firm beliefs. He built his auto shop from nothing, starting in our garage before expanding to 3 bays and 2 employees. His mantra, "A man's worth is in his work." It was family gospel. Mom, Judith, managed Davidson's department store for 30 years, proud of her perfect attendance record. She believed in security, steady paychecks, insurance, retirement plans. She tracked every household expense in color-coded binders, dating back to 1995. Her motto, "Plan for the worst, hope for the best." The headaches started in March, near my 19th birthday. At first just pressure behind the eyes, like staring too long at blueprints. I brushed it off, swallowed Advil, kept working, but they grew worse. Sharp, blinding pain, sudden nausea, dizziness that made me drop lumber mid-step. Meredith begged me to see a doctor, but I was stubborn, like my dad. Why waste money for someone to tell me to rest? Then came April 15th, tax day, a date that would mark my life in a way no numbers could. I was on a ladder, installing crown molding, when everything went black. Rick said I fell 8 feet straight down. The nail gun fired on impact, missing my leg by inches. I woke at Denver General, with Dr. Patricia Knowles beside me, her face carefully composed. Mom sat in a chair. Dad stood by the window. Preston leaned against the doorframe, already distant. "Colton," Dr. Knowles began. "Your CT scan showed abnormalities in your lymph nodes. Further tests confirm Stage 2 Hodgkin-Sepsis lymphoma." The word cancer hung heavy in the sterile air. Mom squeezed my hand until her wedding ring dug into my palm. Dad's face never changed, but I saw him pull out his phone, fingers moving toward the calculator app. The first 3 weeks of treatment gave me hope. Chemo was brutal, but manageable. The nurses knew me by name, brought extra blankets, and showed tricks for the nausea. I FaceTimed Meredith between her classes. She explained what each drug was doing to my body. Mom visited every morning before work, bringing muffins I couldn't keep down but still appreciated. Even Preston stopped by twice, awkwardly dropping off sports magazines. But something shifted. Dad's visits shortened, more time in the hall on calls than with me. Mom's smiles turned strained. Preston disappeared after week 2. Then came May 8th, a Wednesday that began with unusual activity. I woke to my entire family in the hospital room before 7 a.m. Dad held that thick manila folder, Mom faced the window. Preston lingered near the door. And that was the morning my life changed forever. Preston sat in the visitor's chair, eyes fixed on his phone. My father's voice broke the silence, firm and cold, the same tone he used at the shop when letting employees go. He spread papers across my hospital tray, insurance forms, billing statements, payment plans, each marked with his precise notes. "I've been reviewing the numbers with the insurance company and the hospital," he began. "Even with 70% coverage, your treatment will cost around $300,000. That's if everything goes smoothly. No complications, no extra rounds, no experimental care." He pulled out his phone and opened the calculator app, his constant companion these past weeks. "The house is worth $420. We still owe $200. The shop barely breaks even. Your mother's retirement has 80,000. Preston's wedding is already paid for. We don't have room for more risk. Dad, we can work this out, I rasped, my throat raw from a tube placed the day before. I still get back to work once I recover. There are payment plans. Vernon shook his head. You don't understand, Colton. This isn't only about money, it's about survival. The family's survival. He looked me directly in the eyes. Your survival rate at stage 2 is 60%. That means there's a 40% chance we lose everything 3 generations built for nothing, twos. I felt the words heavier than the chemo dripping into my veins. I stim your son. And Preston is my son too. Dad shot back. Your mother is my wife. I have to think of everyone. Mom finally turned from the window, tears streaming down her face, though her voice stayed firm. We made our decision. If the treatments fail, we lose everything. The house, the shop, Preston Sep's future, our retirement. We can take that risk. Preston set his phone down at last. It's simple economics. Colt, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Got deals lined up that could set me up for life, but not if we drain everything on medical debt. You stir abandoning me, I whispered. You stirred choosing money over my life. We are choosing survival over a 60% gamble. Dad corrected. Calm and final, you are too expensive to save. The math doesn't work. The words etched themselves into my memory. Too expensive to save. As if I were a broken part in his shop, not worth the repair. What about love? I pleaded. What about family? This is putting family first, he said, gathering his papers. The family with the best chance to survive. We done here. Don Fit try to contact us. We moving. Numbers will be changed. Your mother Sep's already transferred stores. Preston found us a place in Castle Rock. Mom leaned close, as though she might kiss my forehead. Instead she whispered, I'm sorry you got sick, but we can let you take us down with you. Sometimes love means letting go. They filed out. Dad first, folder under his arm. Mom behind him, eyes averted. Preston paused at the door just long enough to say, for what it's worth, I hope you beat it. Just not with us. Then the door clicked shut. For the first 24 hours, I didn't want to die from cancer. I wanted to die from the abandonment. I stared at ceiling tiles, counting them again and again, because it was easier than thinking about how my father had reduced my worth to numbers on a phone screen. Nurses noticed. They whispered outside my door, checked in more often, brought me extra juice boxes. Then Beatrice Washington entered my room, a 62-year-old hospital social worker with silver braids and glasses that magnified her kind eyes. She pulled a chair beside me, close enough that I caught the scent of lavender lotion. Honey, I heard what happened, she said gently. Now, you can lay here and let them be right, or you can prove that some things can be measured in dollars and cents. They are not coming back, I muttered. Good, she replied, without hesitation. Now you waste energy on people who don't deserve you. Let's talk about what you will do instead. She opened a thick binder, not of debts but of solutions, charity programs, financial aid applications, job options I could manage from a hospital bed. The hospital can cover up to 60% of your bills if you qualify. And honey, you qualify. The rest, we'll set up payment plans for even $20 a month, if that's all you can afford. They'd rather get something from the living than nothing from the dead. Why do you care? I asked. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing a phoenix tattoo on her wrist. 30 years ago, I had breast cancer. My husband left me, said he didn't sign up to be a nurse, but I still here. He on his 3rd divorce. The best revenge isn't dying to prove them right. It's living to prove them wrong. That night, she brought me a laptop from the lost, and found and helped me set up a plan. I would fight the cancer, but I'd also fight the debt. Data entry from bed, paid $15 an hour. Transcription, $18. Tutoring in math and carpentry, $20. But first, Beatrice reminded me, you need a reason bigger than spite. She was right. Spite could light the engine, but it couldn't carry the whole journey. I found my reason the next day. Timothy, a 7-year-old with leukemia, moved into the room next door. His parents lived 3 hours away and could only visit on weekends. I watched him eat dinner alone, coloring while tethered to an IV pole. I wheeled mine over and asked if he wanted company. That night we built a tower out of medicine cups and tongue depressors. When it collapsed, his laughter filled the ward. That's when I knew I had to survive for kids like Timothy, kids who needed someone to show up. The chemo got worse before it got better. 6 months became 8, then 10. My hair fell out, my weight dropped from 180 to 115. Some days I barely lasted an hour before collapsing, but I kept working, stocking shelves on off days with my IV pole as a cane, delivering newspapers at dawn, doing data entry until my eyes burned. Sam, the night janitor, became a quiet companion. He mopped my room around midnight, sometimes sitting in the visitor's chair. He rarely spoke but left crackers on my nightstand when I couldn't eat. Once, he even repaired my broken laptop charger with tape and a paper clip. "You're a fighter," he said one night, the longest sentence I ever heard from him. Meredith called once, 3 months after my family left. I answered, clinging to hope. "Colton, your dad came to my parents. He said staying with you would ruin my future, that I should spend my 20s drowning in debt. He sits right." "Do you love me?" I asked. "Love doesn't pay bills," she said, echoing the same brutal logic. "I been sorry, but I have to think about my future." After that, I taped a note to my mirror. "You are worth saving." Every morning, after throwing up from chemo, I forced myself to say it aloud, even when I didn't believe it. Timothy needed someone to build towers. Beatrice believed in me. Somewhere, I had to prove my worth wasn't a number. 5 years passed that way. 16-hour workdays, cheap dinners, walking everywhere to save gas. Cancer went into remission after 14 months, but the debt lingered, $200,000 even after assistance. I moved into a studio above a Chinese restaurant, the smell of sesame oil soaking into everything. Thin walls meant I learned Mandarin curse words from my neighbors' late-night calls. Last Tuesday was like any other newspaper delivery at 5 a.m., warehouse shift at 8, food delivery by 2. By 8 p.m., I was eating instant ramen with a cracked egg when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, confident. I opened the door to a man in an Armani suit, silver hair perfectly styled, leather briefcase gleaming under the flickering hall light. His Rolex caught the glow as he extended his hand. "Colton Ryder," he said. "My name is Harrison Aldrich, from Aldrich and Associates. I need to discuss an inheritance matter with you." The words sounded strange, almost unreal, in the narrow hallway. I laughed bitterly. "Unless my father passed and left me his calculator. You've got the wrong person. May I come in? I assure you this is legitimate and directly concerns you." Something in his tone made me step aside. Harrison entered my studio, his polished shoes clicking on the worn linoleum. He scanned the room, an air mattress in the corner, a card table for a desk, 3 shirts hanging from a rope across the window. No judgment, only observation. He placed his briefcase on the card table and pulled out documents. "Mr. Ryder, a donor who wishes to remain anonymous until you hear everything has left you their entire estate." "This is a scam," I replied quickly. "I don't know anyone with that kind of money. The wealthiest person I know is my brother, and he wouldn't give me $1 if I were starving." Harrison smiled slightly, as if he knew more than I did. The estate is valued at $63 million. I sank into my folding chair, its metal frame creaking. 63 million. That's Sep's impossible. Who would leave me anything, let alone that much? Before I share the donor's name, they wanted their story told. Harrison produced a handwritten letter. The writing was shaky but steady in intent. The donor was born in 1951 in rural Nebraska. He left school early to support his family and worked as a janitor for 40 years. At night, he tinkered with electronics, eventually securing 17 patents for medical devices, particularly chemotherapy delivery systems. His work saved thousands of lives and generated hundreds of millions in licensing fees. My hands trembled. Sam? Harrison nodded. Samuel Haversham. He cleaned your hospital room during treatment. Sam, a millionaire. The thought felt unreal. This was the same man in a gray uniform who ate vending machine sandwiches and mumbled about circuit boards while mopping floors. Mr. Haversham lived simply by choice, Harrison explained. No family, no children. He spent decades watching patients fight for their lives. You stood out. He said he'd never seen anyone fight harder with less support. He often sat in your room during breaks, watching you work on your laptop even when you could barely stay conscious. Harrison opened another document. His will is clear. The entire estate goes to you with one condition. You must use a portion to establish a foundation for abandoned medical patients. He read from Sam Sepp's words. Thay Colton Ryder was deemed too expensive to save by those who should have loved him most. He proved that the value of life cannot be reduced to dollars. This money will ensure no patient fights alone again. Sepp's tears ran down my face. Sam had been there in silence during my hardest nights, when I thought I couldn't go on. There's more, Harrison continued. He handed me Sam's journal. One entry read, "The boy worked until 3 a.m. despite chemo earlier that day. His family hasn't visited in 4 months. He doesn't know I increased his morphine when pain was unbearable, or that I paid for antibiotics when insurance refused. He doesn't know his worth, but I do. It's immeasurable." When did he die? I asked. 2 weeks ago. Pancreatic cancer. He refused treatment, saying his money should fund life, not prolong death. His final words were for you. Tell Colton his father was wrong. He was worth saving. He was worth everything. The check cleared the next morning. $63 million in my account. The bank manager even called to confirm it wasn't a mistake, puzzled why someone with that balance lived above a Chinese restaurant, eating ramen. My first call was to Beatrice Washington, the social worker, who had once handed me a binder of solutions. When I had none, she answered warmly. "Colton, honey, how are you?" "Beatrice, are you sitting down?" "Why? What Sepp's wrong?" "Nothing Sepp's wrong. I need a list of every patient in your charity program with medical debt. That Sepp's over 200 people. Colton, what are you planning?" I said I'm paying it all, every penny. The line went quiet. Then I heard her cry. "Colton, what happened?" "A janitor named Sam Haversham left me his estate because he believed I was worth saving when my family didn't set. Now I shall make sure others know they are worth saving too." Within a week, the Havsham Foundation was established to support abandoned medical patients. Harrison's firm handled the legal work. The foundation covered debts, offered housing, and provided resources so no one would face treatment alone. Then came the call I expected. My brother Preston, from a number I didn't recognize. "Colton, it sits me. Don't hang up. We heard about your inheritance. Dad wants to talk. Mom been crying. We made a mistake. We were scared. You have to understand. $300,000 was everything." "Where did you hear this?" I asked. "It sets in the financial news. A $63 million estate transferred to a 24-year-old cancer survivor. Someone connected it to you. Dad saw it at the shop this morning. Now he wants to reconcile. We step family, Colton. Family forgives. One mistake. I kept my tone steady. Dad said I was too expensive to save. Mom called, letting me go, love. You said it was economics. That SIP's not one mistake, it SIP's a complete failure of humanity. My father SIP's voice replaced his. Son, we did what we thought was best for the family. We wanted to protect the future. No, Dad, you wanted to protect your assets. There SIP's a difference. Don Espitas, be stubborn. You have more money than you still ever use. Your mother hasn't set been the same. She needs to see you. We stir still your blood. Sam Haversham was my family. Beatrice was my family. The nurses who cared for me, Timothy, the 7-year-old with leukemia who shared dinner with me, they were my family. Real family doesn't set measure worth on spreadsheets. They don't set abandon you because of cost. So you sell punish us forever? Keep all that money like revenge? I SEP not keeping it. I SEP giving it to people who need it more than you. The Havsham Foundation will help thousands who were abandoned, just like me. You still making a mistake, he said sharply. We still your real family. No, you step blood relatives. That SIP's all. Sam, a janitor, earning $17 an hour, sat with me through the worst nights. You couldn't set visit once. Who do you think earned the right to be called family? I ended the call and blocked the number. Today, the Havsham Foundation has helped over 400 patients, cleared $12 million in medical debt, and provided housing and support networks so no one fights cancer alone. On my desk, I keep Sam's janitor badge, his journal, and a photo of him teaching me how to fix my laptop. Cancer showed me mortality. My family's abandonment showed me what love is not. True family isn't defined by blood, but by those who see your worth when no one else does. Sometimes the quietest people carry the greatest value, like a janitor mopping hospital floors at midnight, holding millions in his heart. If this story resonates, share it with someone who needs to hear they are worth saving. Comment below with the unexpected angels in your life, and subscribe for more stories reminding us all of our immeasurable value.